Good morning, friends, and welcome to the first episode of Tabletop Humans, where I invite other humans in the tabletop space to chat about the work that they do, whether it's game design, actual plays, charity work, what have you. We'll play a little party game, and then we'll have you home by 9. I'm your host, Just the Human. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and today's human guest is Nathan, aka Lurz Blurs on the internet, aka the amazing GM behind Reckless Attack podcast. I am so incredibly excited to chat with Nathan today, whose pronouns are he, him, his, about his experiences maintaining a long-term campaign, collaborative world building, pro tips for interviews. I wonder why I'm doing that. And so much more. I'm so excited to get into our chat today. Not to mention what Nathan's Good Morning Proclamation is going to be for today. With that being said, Nathan, welcome. Thank you so much for being on today. I am so excited to have you. Please introduce yourself and let us know what you do in the space as a tabletop human.
First of all, I challenge you to and excited to be here today off because I can guarantee you that I at least match your level of ultra hyped, if not surpass.
I'm so excited to have you on. Thank you so much for being here.
My brain was like, "Oh, that's a pause card. Wait a second. Hold on. Should I stop going?" Okay, I processed now. We're going. The caffeine is coursing through the veins.
I keep my
But
know you card on me at all times.
and that is why you are set up for great success as a tabletop role playing game interviewer, creator, whatever. But to answer your question, hi, I'm Nathan. I do all the things that Jess said that I do in the tabletop
And
space.
then some more.
And then some more, yes. I GM for our show, the Reckless Attack podcast. Have been doing that for almost for 3.5 years now, I think, which is wild. And I also do some audio editing. One of the shows that we produce is Reckless Talk, which is a tabletop role playing game interview show that comes out once a month. That Jess was on and was an incredible guest on earlier in last year, 2024. It's not earlier this year.
Not
New year.
anymore.
Not anymore. And I do audio editing, and I do a lot of performing on other shows, that kind of deal. I do a little bit of writing, mostly on my own things, but always looking to do more writing in case anyone's like, "Hey, I like the cut of this guy's jib. Let me get him to do things for me." I'm open, and I yell on the internet. I mean, in a nice way, and that's, yeah, I'd say that covers. I think that covers it for the most part.
You do a lot, and it's pretty amazing. Now, I didn't hear a specific mention of frogs, but I guess we
Yes,
can get into that a little bit later.
it's I almost, okay, because this is the channel, I feel like, to say this sort of a phrase, and stop me if that's not, but I think I've read the room correctly. But I was gonna say it's not really I was listing off things that I do in the tabletop space. And it's not really that I do frogs; it's that frogs do me. And then I realized that that's kind of a challenging phrase to put out into the world. It's I channel frog, but I do not. I do not verb frog. I
Okay.
am frog. Frog am I, but also
Frog is
I
you.
am conduit to frog.
Frog is love. Frog is life.
And frog is podcast.
Frog is podcast. And you know what? I'd love to hear more about Reckless Attack podcast. It is pretty fantastic, and I actually did a little searching back to your very first episode, which
Hmm.
launched on October 5th of 2021. So that's 4 calendar years that you've been doing this. Side note, October 5th, perfect date, my wedding date. Love
Aha! You
it.
you mentioned that in the notes, and I was like, now, is it birthday? I don't remember exactly when Jess, and I didn't want to spoil it by like researching ahead of time, but that's good to know.
Absolutely. So one thing I mentioned in your intro is that this is long form. And again,
Yes.
4 calendar years is a very long time, especially when I feel like most people who play D&D or another tabletop role-playing game get a couple sessions and then the campaign peters out. So,
Sure.
so I'd love to hear from you on how you've been able to maintain an engaged audience as well as players throughout the 4 years that y'all have been doing this?
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's important to for kind of setting the scene of what became Reckless Attack is that the five of us, myself, Jonathan, David, Sophie, Steve, I said all of them, right? Yeah, I said all of them. I was worried. It's one of those of
Your math
like
was mathing.
I know the names. I know who's on the podcast with me, but somehow in the as I'm excitedly talking, I'm going to forget someone. We actually had been running a campaign before the podcast. We just were, kind of mutual friends who kind of got glorped together after I put together, like a 2017 Facebook post to be like, hey, who likes Dungeons and Dragons? My group has to quit because there's a baby happening soon, and daddy's got to get his D&D fix. And we just kind of glorped together, and we were actually only planning on a short little kind of thing of like, let's just run through this adventure. They're all strangers. I don't or not, they're not strangers, but I don't know how it's going to work. So let's commit to a short little blurb, to your point, and it just kept going.
You just said blurb. To side note us, Lurz blurbs. Where does it come from?
Lurz blurbs. That actually is a fun story. So I was in college looking for extracurriculars to do, as one does in
Of
college.
course.
And freshman year, I showed up to the student newspaper like intro. Hey, is this a club activity thing that you want to be a part of? And I got sucked into doing sports reporting. And then sophomore year, I became one of the editors of the sports section, and as an editor you get your own column, and I struggled for a bazillion years to figure out like, okay, what's it going to be, what's my column going to, I'm 20 years old, I have a column, excuse me, what the hell? So what's that about? I can't use any of my Zanga blog topics that I've been saying for years, oh god, whatever. But also, what am I going to call it? And I was losing my mind, couldn't figure out what to do. And so I was talking to my co-editor, and she was great at just throwing out weird ideas and threw out Lurz blurbs, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. And so my column was just a lot of like bullet points of like, here's what I think about this, here's what happened here, here's the blah blah blah. And then shortly thereafter I joined Twitter, and I was like, well, Lurz blurbs, that kind of makes sense. It was 140 characters, just short little bits and pieces, and it's fun to say. And I have just kind of kept that as the nom de plume on social medias ever since.
I love that so much. And thank you so much for shaping this show because now I am going to ask every human on this
You should.
show why they have chosen their username.
Yes, I think that's a phenomenal choice.
Thank you. You've put your mark on this show already. Incredible.
Boom, got
And
it.
I've only asked you 1.5
What?
questions.
Who? And question one was, who are you?
That is true. Okay. All right. I'm going to put us back on the track
Indeed.
because you made my brain go burr with that. So you were telling me about the campaign because Daddy was gonna have a baby soon, and it was
Not this
20.
daddy, a different daddy.
Well,
Daddy needed
I didn't
Dungeons and
say
Dragons.
that,
This
Daddy.
That's true.
Uh,
Um,
it's 2017, and you want to play. We've named off our
yes,
5 people that are in this
indeed.
campaign. So tell me more.
And it just clicked. We just started playing, and I had a one shot that I found on the internet. I think it was one of those like one page dungeon things. I don't know if you remember or have interacted with those, but and it would just kind of the one shot turned into a 5 session thing, as they always do, and then that turned into like, well, that was pretty fun, we can do, we'll do another one, and then it just kept going from there, and we played that campaign for multiple years, and we finished it like it was a full, had the climactic boss fight, did the epilogue, everything, like we did it.
How does it feel being God's favorite, finishing a
It was
campaign from start to
it was
finish?
it was everything you hope it would be. Like it was tremendous. And at that point, so we were originally planning, I'm also kind of jumping around a little bit. we were planning on releasing our podcast starting in 2020. That was the time where we're like, we have been ideating, we've been doing all this other stuff, and then COVID hit, and we're like, we could, but we really want to record in person. Like, the goal of our show is very much, for those who are not familiar, it is still very kind of like high artsy and drama and that kind of thing, and a cohesive story, but with a lot of feeling of still being around the table and friends playing and that kind of thing. And we'd play together a little online, and it's a different vibe, especially for audio only, and especially for us as people who had never done any sort of actual play performing beforehand. um, and so we're just like, let's let's hold off. Who knows how long COVID's going to be around? I'm sure we'll just have to wait a little bit, right? And then we launched a year and a half later. Um, but we recorded the finale, like the end of the campaign, on Discord in that kind of gap time. We actually went back and we're like, let's just finish this campaign. Let's do it. And that was really where it's like, oh, this was so good that I am now even more confident in, like, oh, this podcast is going to be like good. Even if no one listens to it, it will be good. And so I went into making Reckless Attack feeling pretty good about our cohesiveness as a group, and our kind of ability to do a long-term campaign, because we had already done it. And I think that we went in with the vision of what we like is long campaigns. That's just what we like. And especially, a lot of the popular shows at the time were all multi-year things, and it just didn't even occur to us to do short little whatevers. And it was like, nope, that's just what we're doing. Is we want to play a campaign, and we want it to be epic, and so that's what we're going to record. And so I think there's definitely been parts of having to kind of step back, to reinvigorate, to check in, to be like, hey, so is this the direction we want the show to be going, and all that kind of stuff. And there's been a lot of ups and a lot of downs, and a lot of times where we've had to kind of figure out how to talk to each other better, and how to communicate, and how to give feedback or ignore feedback or whatever. But yeah, it's really just been it's been the most intense school group project that I think we've ever done. Where we all had to kind of learn new social skills and collaborative art skills, especially as people who didn't come from the theater, didn't come from even really much improv, that sort of deal. We kind of had to forge our own way, and with the goal, which I think speaks to some of the other kind of surrounding questions that you've posed, of how to keep people engaged, our interior on the interior, and fans and that sort of stuff, is the show has to still be exciting and fun. And you have to always be chasing what's exciting for everyone at the table. Um, Sometimes it doesn't always line up. Sometimes you're like, hey, it's only going to be exciting for two of you for today, and sorry. And or it'll be, like, hey, I think we got to set this up kind of in this way. Do we have any other better ideas? But that's what it all's come back down to, is just make a show you're excited to make. And that's the only way you can keep up your energy for 3 years plus. And especially when your energy is not just directed towards sitting down at the table and performing, but editing. And I don't edit our actual plays. David and Jonathan both do, and they do a fantastic job. And they put a lot of music and a lot of thought and a lot of care into it. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work editing stuff. It's a lot of work screaming on social media about it for 3 to 4 years. It's a lot of work to be networking with people. It's a lot of work to blah, 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 all the little bits and bobbles, to be on a Discord server. And you can only do it if you're excited about it, and you believe in it, and it's something you love to do. And if you don't love to do it, then just maybe that's not, you shouldn't be doing it. Change it so you are excited. So that's kind of the long-winded pseudo answer, I guess, to the question.
I love that, and I have so many questions that I immediately want to ask, but I'm
Bring
going to
it.
start with one and we'll just keep going. So, the podcast started in 2020. Were any of you content creators before 2020?
No, not at all. No, I would say so I was a reporter for many years, and I had not been I had no longer been a reporter for a couple of years, but had a I was creating content in the most loose sense, in that I was writing newspaper articles and posting about them on social media. But otherwise, no. Like, we had no feet in content creation, in any really internet space, and certainly not in the tabletop space. And really, we were all denizens of the internet, I would say. We like the internet, we like being on the internet, but in terms of, yeah, like established connections or anything like that, totally on the outside.
Amazing. So then the podcast was the reason that you all decided to start being content creators.
Yeah.
How did you as a human start playing? I assume D&D was your first step into TTRPGs. Is that a
Yes,
correct assumption?
it is indeed. Yes. It was I got introduced to D&D and tabletop games through podcasts. 100%. Like, it was just I remember I had a very long commute to my newspaper job, topical. Like, I was driving, it was like hour and a half,
Whew.
both directions. So I was in the car for 2 to 3 hours a day. And that doesn't include other driving around that goes into writing newspaper articles, all that good stuff. It gave me a lot of time to listen to podcasts, and I love podcasts an art form. I still listen to a fuck ton of podcasts, but I remember learning about the Acquisitions Incorporated campaign with Penny Arcade, where they were playtesting the fourth edition of Dungeons and Dragons. And I don't remember. I think maybe I had just been introduced to Penny Arcade, the webcomic or something like that. But somehow it found its way into my hands, and I discovered the game and the hobby alongside them, and was like, oh, well, that's interesting. That's kind of fun. I'm a writer type. I'm an artsy type. I'm a storyteller type. Uh, hmm, hmm. This is cool, and has a lot less pressure than, like, writing a whole book or whatever. And I just slowly got sucked into that, started consuming more and more shows, and just hundreds of hours of actual play being downloaded into my brain. And I finally, actually, I managed to do a couple little short things with a couple of friends. My first time at GMing, I was like, here's, again, classic story. Here's a one shot. We'll sit down and we'll just finish this in one sitting, and it'll be a great little introduction for my friends and my girlfriend at the time and all that good stuff. And then we were playing till like 2:30 a.m. and it was miserable, actually, but it was still
Oh
whatever. Yeah,
no.
it was bad. I was one of those where, like, we should have just called it, and I
You
don't
were
know why.
new.
Right, I was a wee babe, and I didn't know any better. And but I was still hooked. Like, I was still really interested. And what really got me into playing was, one of my so I used to work at a cafe, and one of our regulars came in all the time. I worked like the brunch shift on the weekend, and it was a horribly laid out store. It was, the line was always giant. There's no seats for anybody, so there was a lot of pressure to, like, keep things moving at the register and move blah blah blah. And yet I would still always chat with people because, I mean, just
It's
look at
what you
me,
do.
obviously. And one of the regulars, was really really great, and we had a lot of great conversations. And one day when I wasn't working, just happened to be in the cafe, I saw him, um, just writing something. And I just, like, went over to be like, hey, how's it going? Whatever. And he, and I asked him what he was working on. And he was like, he was a little embarrassed. And and kind of hemmed and hawed a little bit. And he said, well, do you know Dungeons and Dragons? And I was like, I do know D&D. I've been listening to podcasts. I've tried playing a little bit, but like haven't gotten in. But I like, oh yeah, I'm super in. He's like, well, I'm actually helping write the monster manual for the 5th edition right now. And so I'm working on some of the little blurbs of it. And I was like, excuse me, what? And it turns out this guy had been freelancing for Wizards of the Coast for many years, and eventually invited me to a game with him, and we played together. And like it was this cool, super dramatic, character-driven campaign, and it lasted for like 3 months. And it was like, yep, this is gonna be my shit now. Like this is what I do. It's this. This is the activity. And have kind of been D&Ding or and tabletopping in some version ever since.
I love that so much. What a cool, small little world connection. God, and if you hadn't asked him, hey, what are you doing? That
Absolutely.
is, I love that so much. Okay, so let's timeline for a second. You invite the folks who become Reckless Attack podcast
Yep.
to be in a game in 2017. In
Yeah.
2020, you start the podcast. When did you start playing D&D?
I think it was probably like 2014 probably. So I've been playing a couple years in various places before the Reckless Attack game, and the Reckless Attack game was probably 3 to 4 years. We've sat down and done the math a few times, and none of us ever remember. We never remember the numbers. We keep being like, oh yeah, it's been like, I don't know, somewhere between 6 and 10 years that we have been playing together, essentially. Now with all the podcast stuff kind of alongside it.
That
And
is
then yeah, so then
amazing.
yeah,
That's a 10-year-old. You have a fifth grader in terms of how long you've been playing D&D.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
pretty cool. Um, so for me personally, I really enjoy sharing a table with you, whether you are a game master or whether you are a player. And I think it's because you have such a collaborative mindset when you are at the table. And I'd love to hear in your experience how it differs when you're a player versus being a game master when it comes to collaboration.
Yeah. Well, first, I definitely say my attitude towards collaboration is kind of driven by two things. First, anxiety, in that it is everyone having fun? Is this going the way that people want? What if I do something like that people don't like? What if I let you say what happens next? Isn't that that's a way for someone to make sure that no one's mad at me? Which I've gotten better at, but has also helped develop a kind of a more positive version of that of inviting for collaboration. And it's definitely just an idea of like I am someone who works best working with other people. Like I love getting energy from other people and bouncing ideas back and forth and being like, well, okay, so I have this half-formed thought. What about this? And then being able to hand the ball off back and forth and be like, oh, and then okay, well then what about this? And then what about that? And okay, well if that's true, then oh my god, it connects over here. And that's just like a fun energy for me. And so anytime that I'm able to inject that, not just is it more fun for me, but it's a little old hat, but the more ideas, the better, to an extent, and the more perspectives, the richer. The no one person should be expected to have every single good idea in a story or in a show. I would say for me, I don't actually feel as comfortable as a player, uh, especially collaboratively, just because I haven't done it nearly as much as I am a forever GM. I've recorded 120 some episodes of GM podcast and have guested as a player a handful of times.
Let me just
But
write some notes to help change that.
yeah, please. Hey, this is an open invitation to anyone who's watching this. Help me practice, be a player by letting me be a player over at your table. But also a GM for you too. That's cool too. I am someone who likes when I am at my best as a player or as a GM, like I'm locked in, I'm feeling good, I'm kind of zoned in on the story, all that good stuff. I like making sure the spotlight gets pointed in different directions and making sure that what I do sets someone else up to do something also cool or cooler. Um, and I think that that holds true with certainly me as a GM. That's my GMing philosophy is like I just put out things and then you react to it and whatever that means, or I say, "Hey, well, it occurs to me that your character might feel a way about this. How do they feel?" Or, "Hey, your characters probably would have been to this place before. What's like a cool thing that they noticed or whatever?"
To interject, I
Mhm.
like how you give them the agency then to say this is what happens instead of saying your character feels this way. I think some GMs, especially when they're newer, get caught up on this is what I think is happening, so I'm going to say that instead of saying you might be experiencing this. Is that true to that character's reality? So I really
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, and I think I've fallen into that trap a couple times. Certainly as GM, I think anyone could, and I don't think it's a black mark on anyone's soul if they have done it before. It's happened to me, and I am sure I've inflicted it on others before. But yeah, just trying to find. I think this has been a big part of me growing as a person while be making content. Gross vomit, gross is learning things like that. Learning not just the energy of like, hey, your character is probably is sad about this, or your character does, it makes this thing makes them think of their mother or something, right? Like I feel like there's a good energy behind that to an extent. The energy could easily be, hey, I am inviting you to engage at a deeper level with this moment and run with it. You don't want to be prescriptive about it, and so learning how to massage that into a an open invitation to be like, hey, I am giving you a platform, I'm giving you structure to react. If you want to take it, go for it. Because
Absolutely.
that's often what I need. Like I one of the things that I know about myself that I desperately want to shed as more is a need to have permission to do things. I don't know if that's something that you struggle with or encounter, but I know that that's something that lots of people kind of either knowingly or unknowingly have to get through. Is the idea that your ideas are good or valuable. Like they don't even have to be good, and that's fine. The art you make doesn't have to be perfect. The you don't have to. No one has to tell you that it's okay for you to do this thing. Just do it if you like it. Just do it.
You know,
And I'm
I don't
horrible
want
at
to
that.
I don't want to Uno reverse this on you, but my mantra of 2025 so far has been would a cishet white man be having be questioning himself right now? And
Right.
if he wouldn't, neither should I.
Make art like you are a overconfident middle-aged white man,
Yep.
and that's it, and as long as you're being, kind of like, as long as you like, it's not even the value of making art is that you have expressed yourself. That's it. It's not going to be perfect. It's not even going to be good all the time. And that goes down to the micro level of like, hey, so what color is your dress? Is your character's dress? And it's like, man, I said olive green. What was I thinking? That's going to wash out my character's features. Like, that's not the color at all. But like, whatever, it's fine. You made a choice, and that's like, now you just run with it.
Yeah, but later
Um,
it can become a color changing dress because of magic.
because of magic, exactly. Hooray, fantasy, always. Because magic. But I think that that I try hard again when I'm at my best to give people launching points. And as a GM, that is, hey, here's an insane situation. I don't know how you're going to get out of it. Good luck. here's an NPC that has secrets or is actively trying to work against you, but aren't someone that you can just like fight. Or an NPC who's this sort of thing, or just challenges your worldview, or again this puzzle. Don't know. Either figure it out, whatever it is, or just hey, here's a little world building detail, sprinkle it in. And that's something I always try to do because it gives people just enough structure to make those sort of artistic choices. Sometimes it goes like bottom up. Sometimes people are like, I don't have a good idea, I don't know, and that's fine. Other times it creates something beautiful, and super recommend that. And on the player side of things, it's kind of the same, where it's like how my challenge to myself is, and I don't know that I'm great at it yet, but my goal is how can I, through my expression of this character, give things for other people to react to. How can me embodying this character uh, give someone something to be like, I hate what you just did, Nathan's character, or oh my god, I love that, I'm gonna do that too, or just like gives energy to a scene, or can I be a character who's curious about another character, who's like, hey, my character is a big barbarian and you're a wizard, and like, huh, so you have schools that you go to? I don't know how to read. So what's your school like? Of just like that sort of energy of like, sure, I'm embodying my character, but I'm inviting other people to not even just share the spotlight, but take the spotlight kind of through that expression. So
It sounds like you
that's really
like
what it
being a
comes
good
down to.
scene partner.
That's what I hope. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's goes back to the like having to learn things that people who have taken improv classes or been in theater already know. But it's something that I don't know that all role players have, especially people who are just kind of sitting around the table at home, and is something I try to work hard on doing, is being a good collaborative scene partner.
I love that. And as a person who has sat at a couple of your tables, I think you do a really good job as a game master of doing some collaborative world building before the game starts. I remember specifically our monster of the game, our monster of the week game that we did, I think early 2023.
I think that is true. Yes.
I don't know. Time is weird soup. It doesn't matter. We did it in the past and it was a
We
lot of
did it.
fun. And I remember in our session zero, we took some time to say, what kind of setting is this? We settled on, we were all high schoolers and we like helped build that out. And I really respect that because I feel like it gives players and characters a reason to care. They're not
Yeah.
just appearing and being plopped into this space. They're real living human beings, or maybe they're not human beings, but they're some thing, some person that has been integrated into the story, and I think that it gives them a reason to care more. So I really respect that, and I'd love to hear a little bit more on your opinions, or a little bit more of your just purview on why you do that and why it's so important.
Yeah. I think first it comes back down to the anxiety of, is everyone having fun? Is this going to go badly? Is this, especially when it's a show, where it's like, we have 3 hours to do this or whatever, and we don't want to be arguing about the vibe at the 45-minute mark. Can't do that, and it's just not fun to do at any game table, let alone live on Twitch or YouTube or whatever. But I also, something that when I was learning about tabletop role playing games and kind of being involved in Reddit discussions and in early social media and listening to shows of that sort of thing, is the value of agreeing on the genre that you're telling, the genre of story. And that's just how my brain works, is I like to know the rules going in, so I don't do anything wrong. Again, hello anxiety. But once you agree on the genre and the tone and whatever, then everyone knows what you're going to get, give or take. If it's again a high school drama, it's like, all right, cool, someone's going to have a crush on someone, obviously, and there's going to be bullies, obviously, and someone's a jock, obviously, and we all know what a jock is. And now we're just learning about this person's interpretation of a jock or this dynamic or whatever. And just kind of making sure everyone knows what they're getting ahead of time just helps everyone be more satisfied, where everyone can be like, cool, I'm sitting down to play my high school drama monster game. Great. And like they know what that is. And if they're not feeling their high school drama monster game, then great. Like we'll do something else, or we'll cancel, or we'll do whatever. Or we'll do a different version of it and we'll talk about it. But um, having that agreement going in helps so much, and makes it so much easier for people to iterate when you are making shit up. Because the lines that you're coloring in between, and you can be like, oh, wait a second, oh, again, Jess is doing their bad boy arc. Oh, okay, cool. Well, then that means that I need to include this sort of an NPC because that's what you need in a bad boy arc. And oh, well, like, oh, here's what a teenage crush looks like, or here's the devastating, clueless insult that needs to be said now because that's what needs to happen. And it just builds so much of a scaffolding for everyone to be moving in a similar direction.
I love that. And so, Nathan, you're pretty good at GMing. You're kind of a pro at this point. You've been doing it for an incredibly long time, and I'd love to hear from your perspective if you could go back in time and either give yourself advice or to give the folks that are watching or listening to this advice. What would you say?
I think um, I there's so many things, but the bit of advice that I always return to this day, and have to remind myself of, I think I've mostly internalized it, but I can't remember where I heard it. I want to say maybe it was, I think it was maybe one of the writers or creators of The Good Place talking about making the show. And that show is it's wonderful. First of all, everyone go watch it if you haven't, or rewatch it, whatever. It's great. I just rewatched it. But that was a show that was renowned for doing huge plot points or twists way earlier than anyone expected. Like it was always a half a season ahead of time where it's like, holy shit, they're doing that now? Wait, what? Well, where are they going to go from here? And I have kind of internalized that. And again, I think the creator said something basically this is, don't worry about running out of ideas. Don't be over precious with your cool shit. If you have cool shit, put it out there. Obviously pad it to make it make sense, and it's good to have downtime and all that kind of good structural stuff around it. But like, hey man, don't forget you came up with that cool idea, or you found it, or you stole it from somewhere and was inspired to run with it. Don't worry about it. Like, more will come. Don't be precious. Just put cool shit out. Just put the stuff that you're excited about out, and then most of the time more ideas just kind of tumble from there as people interact with your idea and shape it and move it around like a Rubik's cube. And don't worry about it. Just don't hold anything back. Keep throwing stuff out, because you'll come up with something. And if you don't, then good news, at least in the tabletop space, you have a table of 2 to 6 other people who you can just be like, hey, so I don't have a good idea of what to do next. Does anyone else have a good idea of what to do next? Most of the time, the answer will be, oh, hey, what about this? And then you're like, holy shit, that's amazing. And then you go run in that direction, and it gets taken care of. So yeah, just don't be afraid to, don't view anything as, oh, this is the idea. and I need to wait until it's perfect, and I need to build to it, and I blah blah blah. No, man, you just throw it in. Come up with more stuff. You will. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
I really love that. And to go back to something that we talked about earlier, it sounds like at one point reckless attack was just an idea, and is something that y'all weren't afraid to move forward with. And thinking back on what we've talked about, I might have the answer already, but I'd love to hear from you. You know, we we're in a space where there's a sea of tabletop role playing games that are actual plays that are being streamed. But Reckless Attack is audio only. And so I'd
Yeah.
love to hear from you on if you think that helps set you apart. Because one, it's just audio. It is truly theater of the mind. But two, people don't have to go and say, "Oh my god, I have to be at the stream at 4 PST or I'm going to miss something." So, I'd love to hear from you on that.
Yeah, I think kind of first, I mean, since none of us were performers, the idea of being on video was horrifying. Uh, and I'm not gonna say it's not still not a lightly horrifying, but I think we've collectively gotten a little better at it.
Well, thank
But
you for being on video today. I
yeah,
really
here I am.
appreciate it.
Hello, behold me confronting primordial fears. But I think that yes, definitely. First of all, that's how I consumed actual play content. Like that is the podcasts, and especially podcasts with a huge backlog. That's how I got into the hobby, and I think that's kind of true with a lot of the other people. And it just makes sense to just be like, here's what there are very so few other pieces of media that don't live on forever, to a degree, or live on so that they can just be binged, right? And it only makes sense to be like, hey, here's the thing, we made it, but like it's not going away. And I think there is a lot of value in live performance. Absolutely, it's still one of my favorite ways to perform anything, let alone actual play. But I think there's always trade-offs of, for us, especially as new creators and new performers, there was a lot of comfort in being able to redo things and being able to be like, actually, can I try that again? Or, hey, we listened to the episode and this doesn't make any sense. Or we said this NPC's name wrong like multiple times, and so we might have to tweak that. And so I think that podcasts for us both were is a fun thing to just look at and be like, there it is. There is our 100 some episodes of thing. And isn't that neat? And isn't that neat to share to other people? But also was a nice way, again, to kind of give ourselves many bits of permission to perform, and permission to kind of like hide behind an audio medium, even though ultimately I think audio, from a crutch to a kind of bespoke form of art expression, or specific form of art expression. Yeah, I think it just fits how we like to play, and what we like to do, more than I think anything else does. So just worked for us, and certainly worked for the people who enjoy listening to our show, hopefully.
I love that. Well, one thing that I really love about the podcast is that most of the episodes come in at that 60-minute mark.
Yeah.
And I think all of them come in most definitely under 2 hours. So I'd love to hear on, is that intentional? And do you do it for you as the group that's playing? Do you do it for the audience? Do you do it for a mix of both?
Both for sure. And it is very intentional. That was something that we very early on um, agreed on. And again, part of it was just like I personally had consumed probably literally thousands of hours of actual play, probably at that point. And some podcasts were like, hey, this is our 2 to 3 hour session, and we just recorded it, and we edited it down, and it sounds good, but like, it's a movie.
That's That is an extended cut of The Lord of the Rings, which I am currently watching.
Hell
I
yeah,
woke up on January 1 and I said, why don't we start at The Hobbit and go all the way through and watch all of
blast
the
through.
extended versions?
Love it. I am jealous of you, and maybe I should just go do that now.
Do it.
Excuse me. I gotta go. Bye, Jess.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much for having you. Or
No, I love that. Thank you so much for having you. Don't no notes. Leave that. That's the new sign off of the show. Sorry. And I just found I enjoyed an hour ish, and I think everyone agreed as well. But it's just easier to have a backlog if you're recording an hour. It's also but also it's easier to have. Here's what this episode is. It's an hour to hour and a half of content, and this is the vibe. And but a combination of like, hey, we have to focus, we have to make sure everything fits in this thing, so we trim off the fat, we trim off the boring shit, and it's just all character or all action or all this theme or all whatever. But that's what this is, which I think is for me at least is satisfying, where I get to look back and be like, ah, yes, this is the episode where we explore the city that the group is based on. This is the episode where it's this fight. This is the episode where we blah blah blah, where we talk to this NPC and we just learn more about blah 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 blah. And that's just kind of feels satisfying. But also it's nice when you're doing 100 some episodes of, I know as a GM, I only have to prepare for 90 minutes. And sometimes that's important. Sometimes that's really nice where it's like, man, I don't know. I need time to come up with more stuff, or it's been a terrible week and I haven't done any of the prep that I want. And if you wanted me to run 3 hours of session, I would not. I just couldn't do it. And it's much easier that way. But ultimately, I don't know, like hour and a half. We've heard from a lot of people that they also appreciate that, and it just fits attention spans, and it's easier for people to do it, especially weekly, or even twice a month, which is what we're moving to in 2025. But just easier for people to retain the information, stay engaged for the whole time, and then be done, as opposed to like, all right, well, once you're in the 2 and 3 hour mark, I certainly have to start scheduling my week around consuming this whole thing. It's like, all right, well, I'll listen to a half hour here and I'll be sure to turn on and cleaning and I'll be blah blah blah, and I'll do it during the run, and so then maybe I'll be done with the episode by the time the next episode comes around, but also hope I'm not listening to any other shows. So yeah, we just thought it was more consumable, without being too fast, because I think we also wondered, like, a 30-minute episode, 45-minute episode, some places do that too, and it works for them, but it just didn't it felt hard for us to capture all the story we wanted, and also the vibes of friendship and of fucking around at the table and weird references and stuff that
AKA
is
the really
requisite.
important part.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, especially for us, it's a trope of, right, of like, oh, we're just five friends sitting around a table, playing D&D. And we learned pretty quickly not to have that be our marketing pitch, but but that's still the tone. Is we still want people to feel a little bit like they are sitting around the table at the best game of D&D that they've ever played, and that's kind of our goal. In sound design, in the bullshit we leave in, and the stuff we leave out. Right, we edit out the math. We edit out the, like, okay, wait, what does this spell do again? Let me decide. Blah blah blah. But it fits that nice balance for us, as we can kind of include everything but keep it moving.
And that's smart, I think. But the part that made my brain go ping was that you said we're just five friends as our marketing pitch,
Yeah.
because I believe that your marketing pitch is frogs. And we did promise the people that we were going to talk about the frogs. So I really want to skirt right into them.
Yeah, as soon as I said it was like, oh, I think they're going to ask about frogs now, and I'm here for it. I'm always down to talk frogs. Yeah, so very early on, yeah, I professionally was and am in public relations, so kind of have a little bit of an idea of how to get people's attentions, or at least kind of boil down, here's what our show's about, here's why you should listen to it, or hey, if any of these things are interesting to you, maybe give us a try. And that's kind of the TLDR version of anyone who's looking for any sort of marketing advice is like, what are you excited about? What do you think other people might be excited about? Just yell about that and be like, hey, do you like this? Listen to our show. That's There you go. You are now a marketer. Congratulations. And one of the things, and so I kind of went in with that perspective, right? Of like, we hammer the things that we are about, the vibes that we give out. We try to tell a little bit of the plot that's happening, just to get people who are interested in that sort of thing maybe glommed on to be like, holy shit, what do you mean there's something called the Holy Promethean, the Shambling Saint, long may his walk continue? Well, that's interesting. Maybe I should listen to this. But also, sometimes the people tell you what they're interested in, and say, oh, this is what I like about your show. And that's great. Collaborative world building is a note that we get a lot. Again, kind of friend vibes is one that people really celebrate. The little bits of horror we sprinkle in are people, and that's all been incorporated. And sometimes the feedback is frogs. Sometimes the feedback is frogs. Um, One of our main characters is named Checkers. He is a grung druid, and he rides atop his trusty steed Mango, who is an even larger frog. And he also has a familiar who is named Junior, who is also a frog. And they are the frog stack, and they were very fun. And it was kind of very immediately where it's like, oh, that's a fun character,
It's frogs all
and
the way down. I love it.
it's frogs all the way down. And the player who plays him, Jonathan, is a player who I trust to make a meme-ish, mascot-ish character, but make them like actually real and not just like, haha, lol, I'm so random. Everyone, I'm a stack of frogs. Isn't that funny? And the end of the character. And that's not the case. And Checkers is wonderful. But very early, also, this is a light spoiler for Reckless Attack, but not a big one. There was a even there one of the protagonists of the first arc, or excuse me, one of the antagonists of the first arc is another tribe of Grung, and so our first like 5 to 7 episodes, the episode to frog ratio is extremely high, and people liked it when I talked about frogs on social media. And that's really as simple as it is that we had a stack of frogs as a character. We had a bunch of more frogs, and there's a lot of frog art on the internet. There's a lot of frog memes on the internet, and people just started out of nowhere referring to us as the Frog Podcast. And I originally kind of balked at that, where it's like, okay, it's fun, but like we don't like we're not like a joke podcast, and we're not only frogs, but I have peppered it in a lot and kind of found a balance, and to this day people who, such as yourself, who entered the space when we did, still I think in the back of their minds identify us as like, oh yeah, the podcast with frogs, and or Nathan, the one who screams about frogs all the time on his podcast account.
I
And
have
yeah,
started sending you all of the
and
frog things on Instagram.
it's the best.
Yep.
I love it deeply. Please, everyone is invited to send me stuff on social media through our podcast account that is frog content, and I will reuse it
You
shamelessly. I will use it as my own content. Please do me this favor. But
truly a
yeah,
podcast for the people. I love it.
well, and genuinely, yes. Like, and I think that that's an important thing, yeah, an important lesson to take away is have your own idea of what your podcast or show or content, your book, your adventure, your blah 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 is, and know what makes you excited about it, what you love about it, what you think is really exciting, and yell about that, and that'll attract other people who are excited about those things. Absolutely. But also, it's really valuable to listen to what other people are saying about your thing, and whether that is in the playtest phase, whether that is 3 months down the line of someone who's like, holy shit, I just binged your entire show, holy shit, I love these frogs, or are just like, oh, I made this shit post about frogs, and everyone loved it. And now we're being referred to as a frog podcast. It's like, well, I guess maybe we should talk about those things too, because they are true and clearly it's resonating with people. And so it's just good to stay engaged, and be updating your kind of Rolodex of talking points about what your thing is about and why people should be excited about it. And sometimes the answer is frogs.
Marketing 101 as told by frogs. I
By
love
exactly.
that. But I think that we've talked so much about frogs that instead I'd like to talk a little bit about humans now.
Mm.
Personally, I feel that humans get kind of a bad rap. Um,
Yes.
I just said bed rap. I meant to say bad
I was
rep.
just yes anding. We were going to roll through it, but I appreciate your integrity.
Thank you. Thank you for having my back.
Mm-hmm.
Good human. But speaking of humans, they get a bad rep. When it comes to D&D, I think a lot of people think that they're boring. Um, and so I'd love to hear from you about a human character that you've made either in D&D or maybe across another TTRPG and what really made them unique, because as a person who really struggles to like not make bisexual tiefling bards, I am super bisexual. I am sitting
Oh no, I
crisscross
lost again.
applesauce.
Oops.
I think there's something really special about having a
Mm-hmm.
human character that is being played by a human person.
Yeah. I first I'm gonna use this as a brief soapbox to rant. Uh, I love I I I think that fantasy races or species or ancestries, kind of whatever is most appropriate. I want them to all be weirder. I want like I love playing tieflings as well. And dwarfs and all these other things. And I think that there is a good amount of like, hey, make sure that all of these different people are not monocultures, right? And are fully realized individuals who are not just like, ah, yes, I am orc, I big, I live in hut and and do crime or violence or whatever. That's not good. um but I think I love playing humans in settings where non-humans are less human or differently human, I should say, where it's like elves in D&D fantasy live for 800 years or whatever. That makes them different. Like they look at the world differently than other people. And I love, and it's not a requirement. I play all kinds of stuff and don't hold myself accountable to this whatsoever. But I do love when someone's like, "No, I'm 700 years old." And I still look like I'm 23 and I'm hot, and that's that, and deal with it. And I view you all as tiny specks along the timeline, and it colors my interpretation of things. Just because I think that's kind of lovely as a contrast and to explore the perspectives of other people, even if it's truly alien. But then to bring it back to playing, I think that's why playing a human sometimes in fantasy is like kind of bleh, because like who wants to be a normal human when you could be a hot bisexual tiefling who's just also essentially a human? And like I'm here for it, to be clear. I love it. It's the best. But also like if I had the choice between me, Nathan, the human, or Nathan but like purple with cool horns,
I feel
yeah,
it in
I'm
my soul, dude. Same.
right.
Except
Like
Jess, not
I'm gonna
Nathan.
do that. I'm gonna do that. And so I think that's where humans extra shine is when there's things to measure them against, basically. But I think I've played a lot of great human characters. There's kind of two that really jump to mind. One is I someone else was running in our reckless attack group, pre-reckless attack, and it was just a little one shot. And I came up with a human fighter, because why not? Just to really lean into it. And I don't recall the character's name, but she was just a mercenary. She was a human fighter mercenary who's like, oh, you have money? Great. Sure, I will absolutely fight with you. That sounds great. But she was a single mom who was adventuring to make money to care for her family. And I don't remember if she was even a single mom. Maybe she had a partner or husband or something kind of staying at home. But like that was just her job. But she was very professional. She was very, had a lot of good customer service and coworker skills. And it was just like, yep, like this is just the job and I like doing it and I'm good at it. And so I'm just going to do that. And it was kind of a very fun thing to play. And again, really root it in the the lowercase h humanity of someone who would be out adventuring and slaying monsters and whatnot. And the other one is also one of our NP or no, excuse me, literally, Jess. I'm not going to finish that because the other character that it was human that I was like, oh yeah, and then also there's this NPC in Reckless Attack who's a human, who blah 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 blah. I realized that they are indeed a bisexual tiefling, and so never mind, Jk.
Incredible. I love that.
So isn't that kind of perfect
I
at the
mean,
same time?
it's what's your personal philosophy on what makes a human human, whether or not they can be a tiefling or not?
100%.
Which brings me to my last question of our interview portion. And that is that tabletop implies the existence of table bottom, and I
Yes.
would love for you to weigh in on your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I think what I appreciate about this question is, I mean, manyfold, obviously, but I think the amount of scholarly work that has been done on this observation is high, and I think that giving it an extra platform for other people to highlight things that they have seen other scholars in the area kind of work through, as well as their own kind of novel interpretations of this fundamental truth about the world and the way that it is structured, is I think going to be a very impactful activity and resource for the tabletop community. So thank you first for your scholarly service in putting this out. Now, for me, I'm gonna bring it back a little bit to some of our earlier conversation, where I think that tabletop and table bottom, uh, that to me strikes a wonderful thread of creativity around uh, corporeal space and world building in tabletop role playing games, where it is, yes, the tabletop, table bottom. Maybe there's an under table. Maybe there is a realm of table. Maybe there is the, kind of various, the four elements of tabletops and four elements of table bottoms. And maybe there is a whole cosmology of, there's like, yes, this set of gods, the tabletop gods, and then there's maybe a set of gods where the table bottom gods. And not that either are evil, but they are, just kind of a yin and yang back and forth of like, how did they all interplay? And what is the dynamic between a tabletop and a table bottom? We should explore that. And that I think the beauty of the question is that it asks more questions, not just of, again, of it as a scholarly topic, but us as humans, as tabletop and table bottom humans.
First of all, love that. Thank you so much for doing your research. Second of all, don't even get me started on table verses. With that being said, we
Mm-hmm.
are going to move into our game portion.
Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
All right, my friend, are you ready to party game?
Oh yes. Oh, I'm ready. This was all just an exercise to get warmed up for, and maybe even earn the opportunity to do party games here with you, Jess.
Check. You have earned the opportunity. Thank you for moving on. I am so thrilled to play. You have picked I'm Going to a Convention.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of my favorite games to play with my partner when we are on a long road trip. Um, Essentially,
I love
I
that. That
am.
that is extremely adorable. I'm interrupting. That's extremely adorable and good for the both of you.
Oh, good. Okay, well, I'll tell you some more really fun games that we play at a later time. But I'm going to a convention. Essentially, I'm going to pick a place where the convention is happening. And I'm going to tell you something that I'm bringing to the convention. And then you're going to say, am I bringing this? And we're going to
Hmm.
keep going back and forth, getting you closer through hints to where you think the convention is happening. No pressure, but if you guess the wrong thing, you do lose the game, and I immediately kick you off the call.
Reason I perform best when there is a hard deadline and firm stakes. So that's actually good news for me.
Perfect. Okay, so do you need a practice, or do you
No,
think you got it?
no, no. I have been playing myself, and I'm going to a convention for the last 24 hours to be ready for this. I did not sleep. I need this. I need this like resolution in my life so I can go on living. So let's just rock and roll.
Thankfully, I can provide that. All right, Nathan, I am going to a convention and I am bringing DVDs.
Ooh. Um, hold on, let me make sure I'm saying the right.
You
Okay,
would just
I want to
say,
make
are
sure I
you
was saying the right
bringing?
phrase.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jess, are you bringing like sleeping bags?
No.
Hmm.
I'm going to a convention and I am bringing computers.
Hmm. Computers and DVDs. uh, well, Jess, are you bringing like Ethernet cables?
Yeah, I think that there are some Ethernet cables.
Okay.
Nathan, I am going to a convention and I am bringing bookmarks.
Oh, okay. Um, uh, Jess, are you bringing some sort of like proof of residency, like your address or that sort of thing, to kind of prove you live in a specific area?
I am.
Okay.
I'm going to a convention and I'm bringing books on gardening.
Oh, okay. Um, I guess are you? I just want to be sure before so that I'm kind of going in prepared. Are you bringing, say, just maybe books about science fiction?
I am.
Okay, good, interesting.
I'm going to a convention and I'm bringing gardening seed packets.
That's very interesting. Um, hmm. Are you bringing encyclopedias?
I am.
Okay.
Are you ready to guess where the convention's at?
Is it a library convention, Jess?
It is.
Yes.
Yay! You get to stay on the call. Congratulations.
Now I can
Amazing.
collapse in a heap.
You know, I before our call was like, obviously I'd be bringing books, but I don't want to give that away. So I was like, what can I find at a library? And there are so many things that you can
Straight up,
find.
Jess. I was like in the shower ahead of this before I reread because it's like, oh, in case I have to come up with like where the convention's going to be. Library was going to be my choice for exactly the same reasons, where it's like, oh, there's so many weird things at a library that you could just be like, well, this is there and then blah blah blah. And so once it all clicked in, it was like, oh, I think we get it, we're there, we understand.
Incredible. I love that so much. Well, Nathan, because you are still on this call with me right now, I would love to hear what you have coming up, any things that you want to promote and tell the people about. Obviously, you need to go into your internet machine right now and look up Reckless Attack Podcast. It sounds like you can start at episode one. It sounds like there are some episode recaps that you can
Yes.
watch if you're like, starting at episode one isn't for me. What if I just jump in?
Yes, exactly. So again, I thank you, Jess, for having me. This has been such a wonderful time. I am and have been and will continue to be Nathan of the Reckless Attack podcast and just the internet and fellow tabletop human. You most of my stuff is available indeed at and through Reckless Attack. You can find all of that at recklessattack.com. whatever your podcatcher of choice is, we are there. Indeed, we have 100, as of recording this, I think 120 some episodes out, dating back. That includes fun side adventures and little bits and bobs here and there. But for the most part, it is all one beautiful, cohesive story that we're kind of starting to hurdle towards a full like Act 3 big climactic thing for. But as Jess said, if you're like, "Whoo, that's a lot of episodes," or even just, "Hey, that's a lot of episodes, and I want to see if the vibes are for me." Before I really jump in, we have a series of Tale Till Now episodes, which are various just recaps. Some versions are clips of the episodes, some versions are the characters themselves, kind of talking about their experiences, all of it designed both to tell you what has happened, or for those who are longtime listeners, remind you what has happened, and also just kind of give you an idea of the vibes of the characters, the vibes of the world, all that good stuff. So it's a great way to get caught up fast. We also have a Discord where people are talking about all these episodes in real time, which is a lovely place to go, just always. And I think there are links to that also on our website. Otherwise, we're on all the social medias at various versions of Reckless Attack Podcast, especially Blue Sky as of late. It's the main one that everyone, I guess, should be going to because all the other ones have been crumbling to dust. And otherwise, yeah, just like follow me on all the socials as well. I share thoughts about all kinds of dumb things, including tabletop things. If you want, I have been a professional writer for like 10 to 15 years across various different formats in PR, in marketing, in journalism, in my own weird little products. So if you are like, hey, that guy was pretty cool, reach out to me and I'll write stuff with you, or I will brainstorm stuff with you, or I will perform on things that you are doing. Just shoot me DMs or emails or whatever. But and otherwise, we also do Reckless to Talk. We talked a little bit about it. It's an interview show. It's very good. It's similar vibes to this. Jess was on it. Great place to start because Jess is indeed a wonderful individual, and they had a great episode earlier. But otherwise, I think those are my things. I think those are the things.
Hell yeah. And I'm going to be putting those all into the links below. So make sure you check them all out and give Nathan and the folks at Reckless Attack Podcast all of the lovin's. But before we move on to our final segment, we are going to share some upcoming tabletop charity initiatives. So be on the lookout and hang out for like 5 to 10 more seconds before we move on. Nathan, my friend, are you ready to give the people the good morning of the day?
This stressed me out more than literally any other part of this interview, like
I
getting ready for it or whatever, because they're so iconic. Like the good morning the Jess the human good morning messages are so iconic and so excellent and so full of whimsy and so Jess centric, right? They're so Jesse that you, I think, even more than you sharing space on your YouTube channel, which is amazing and a miracle and a wonderful, wonderful privilege. And what a joy it has been. But you sharing the good morning messaging space like that feels way higher stakes than me blabbing for 45 minutes.
You know, it is
So
very
I
funny
needed to
that you
say that.
say that, because at PAX U, I asked folks to record good morning messages so I could create compilation videos. And there were people that stressed out a little to
It's a
where they were
lot.
like, I actually don't want to do this.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of pressure. They're always so just like short and quippy and perfect little like encapsulations of a sentiment. And it's like it's kind of like, like, oh hey, you're a comedian, tell me a joke right now. Be funny. And it's like you got like 20 words, you gotta nail it. And if you don't, you have ruined something. You have ruined something pristine that you were given permission to be a steward of even for a moment. And there's a lot riding on it is how I was feeling.
Well, there's no pressure, Nathan.
From
But
you.
the floor is yours. Give us that good morning.
Everyone, listen up. I would like to wish a good morning to GMs who worry that they haven't prepped enough but are sure everyone will have fun anyway, And to them only.
And to them only. You heard it here, folks. I am Just the Human, and this is Nathan from Reckless Attack Podcast. And together, we're saying good morning to the GMs who worry that they haven't prepped enough, but are sure everyone will have fun anyway, and to them only.